And welcome to a truly classic edition of Ben's Junk. Now, first and foremost, I need to thank Denise for sending me not only today's subject matter, today's junk, if you will, but a whole box of assorted goodies, including some VHS vault candidates and some blank 8-track tapes. Now all I need is a reliably functioning 8-track deck again. But anyway, chief among the items she sent was a couple of catalogs for Hoffman brand televisions and radios and record players. And admittedly, I had never heard of Hoffman prior to this. And it looks like, certainly as far as TVs go, they just barely survived into the 60s. Now, in case you didn't get the hint there, I freely admit that I am not an antique TV connoisseur, not an expert, don't know much about these things at all. In fact, I can't say I've ever seen an old, 50s TV in operation in person. I've seen some dead ones before, and I've seen them certainly on YouTube and in movies and stuff, but it's just never happened. But that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate the design of these things. So with that, I've got the 1953 and 56 catalogs here. And let's just take a little informal stroll through the apparently hottest TVs on the West Coast at the time. I did a little cursory search into Hoffman, but I didn't find a whole lot. Really more questions than answers with this company. It's the sort of thing that I think a real historian would have to dig into the periodicals and maybe patents if they had any, and really just, do it the hard way. But anyway, one great mystery is Hoffman. This thing says Chet Hoffman, and that's not penned in or anything. That's part of the design. But there was a Mr. Hoffman, but his name was Les. So I don't know if Chet was a middle name or a relative or an alias or what was going on there. It doesn't seem to be the name of an individual store or anything. And then Easy Vision is kind of the ultimate marketing ploy in a way. He didn't always have the best parts at hand or the intended parts, but he would just try and turn it into a feature. So I'll get into that, but the screens would be tilted down to reduce glare and some other kind of gimmicky stuff. But anyway, if we open this up, I've got this stray one sheet in here, completely unrelated, for a Zenith console, and probably a very early one. I'd say early 50s. And it's still got the truly round TV screen, speaker down here, and we got a turntable and radio, AM FM, in the presumably early 50s, and a true album collection down here, back when albums were literal collections of records. But if I turn this around, you can see that you can actually switch the TV between the full-blown round deal and the more stereotypical 50s kind of fishbowl look. But as I mentioned, AM/FM radio, it touts having the frequency response that you would want for something like that. And it also touts the phone vision system. And it says if it ever comes about. So if memory serves, that's 1951. So yeah, I think we can safely say early 50s here. Really pretty TV. Didn't really see much of anything online about it. Granted, I only did a very quick search. But yeah, this was just stray. Now, in a perfect world, I could undo these clips. I forget what they're called. They're the ones with the metal parts that you fold out. but I started to undo one and it started to give on me. So I'm not sure if I want to potentially break it just in the name of doing a silly video, or maybe scanning it if the mood strikes. I don't really plan on scanning this because it's just a lot of material. I may run off some choice pages just for this episode. But yeah, I guess I'll have to make that hard decision at some point. I like keeping things original. And as you can see here on the first page, we've got some truly ancient Scotch tape here that's kind of rotting, and I don't want to, pull on it too hard, but underneath this price list that's pasted, so to speak, it's just like a few pictures of the company and such. But anyway, I do want you to try and get an eyeful of that price list and the models and such, because we're talking a range of $200 to $800 here. $1953. Adjusted for inflation as of my making this, you can multiply that by almost 10, probably more like 9.5. So, for example, the bottom of the line basic tabletop TV at $200 is $1,900 some odd dollars, adjusted for inflation. The $800 big time console deal is almost $8,000, adjusted for inflation. But anyway, there is one thing I want to point out in here before I get to the TVs themselves, and I'm just going to pick out my favorites because they do tend to run together. But one of their big things was touting the coming of UHF. Now, if I know my TV history well enough, the first UHF station went on the air right around the end of 1949. And so this was very early on. And at the time, there was a freeze going on for new TV channels. The freeze was lifted in 52. I want to say, I don't even know how many, 100 some odd UHF stations were planned. Only some of them went on the air, and almost all of them that did make it on the air died in less than a year, because TVs didn't have to have UHF tuners. And the ones on here, most of them, it's an option. It seems like there's only one model on here where it comes standard. So they were being kind of forward-thinking about it. I'll give them that. But, of course, UHF didn't really take hold till late 60s, early 70s, and some parts of the country into the 80s. But anyway, they do have a couple of pictures where it's kind of the guts, kind of a quasi teardown of the machines. And of course, it being the 50s, it's a whole lot of tubes. So here is the bottom of the line of the TVs, the Laguna. This is the $200 model. Now, this color, what you're seeing on my camera here, is accurate. It's not mangling it in any way. I think these are black and white that were colored in or tinted, but I don't think these are true color photos. Now, if you look at that TV screen, it's kind of a pea soup, yellow-green kind of color. And that is another one of Hoffman's gimmicks. So I guess they couldn't quite get the tubes that they wanted, the picture tubes and glass coverings and such. So they found some military surplus stuff that was this color, and they tried to market it as being easier on the eyes, less eye strain, that sort of thing. Now, these lower-end TVs, it's just the TV proper, just the upper half here, from the knobs up. This you had to buy separately. I mean, it wasn't a huge expense, but $15 in 1953 dollars. So that was how they did that. And I believe all of them, even though they're not really visible in the shots, I guess they all had casters so you could roll them around. Now, these are all one sheets for the TV. Nice picture on the front. And then the back is kind of sort of a spec sheet, as much as you could really hope for. And then but anyway, some of these I really can't tell the difference. Like this Coronado one, I swear they just reversed the image from the Laguna and gave it a different faceplate, and that's about it. If you look at the specs, they don't really change much, if at all. Now, it being a California company, they were trying to keep kind of the certainly southwestern look, certainly for Southern California. I should mention that Hoffman was more of a regional thing. I don't think much of their stuff made it much farther east than Denver, maybe. I'm sure there's some that made it all across the country, but I'd say the vast majority of these things were along the West Coast. But anyway, trying to keep in style with it, there's a lot of this, they call it blonde. And I could totally see this on some beachfront property in the 50s. And then we start getting a little more ornate, bigger TV, still a tabletop model with the separate stand, but you got a couple of doors for it now and stuff. But we really have to start digging for things to really start evolving here. So we're more than halfway into the catalog here, and we're starting to get into that zone where it's almost like you didn't want the world to know you had a TV. And I'm sure that was not the intent. I think it was just matching the decor of your home. But to me, that's just what it looks like. Most of these look like wine racks to me. So here it's a console TV. The bottom, it's all one piece. The bottom is a speaker. And to see how it comes apart, unfortunately, it's only these very small images to show you how it comes apart. But, you know, the two doors swing open. And you can get them where the drawer starts to pull out. This isn't one of them, but we'll get to those. There's another one of those kind of truly California looking ones. Or a proto-IKEA, maybe. That might be a better way to put it. Now there's truly one that's made to look more like a liquor cabinet or something. I would never guess that's a TV, at least from this picture. Maybe that one was only available for the folks in Beverly Hills. So here's the first model where it's truly the full-blown console. TV, radio, and phonograph. Once again, we're doing the kind of liquor cabinet look. And if we look at the little bug on the back, you can see how it comes apart. So you can pull out the drawer, bomb's a drawer, and the radio and turntable are lurking in there. And I should note that pretty much all of these, going almost all the way back, have inputs that you can hook a turntable into and kind of have a little all-in-one hi-fi. I'm not sure if hi-fi was quite a thing yet in '53, but at least proto hi-fi. But I wanted to show you the really, really high-end one here. And it's not the full console. It doesn't have the record player or any of that stuff. But it's a big screen TV for 1953. And here it is, the San Marino, 27 inches. And this isn't $800. I think it was only $750 or so. I'd have to go back and look. But the $800 one was one of the all-in-one deals. But this is the only one where, say, the UHF tuner was part of the deal. And they're trying to really go with the hi-fi thing here. I don't know if tweeters and woofers were quite a thing yet, but something akin to that. So, fascinating stuff as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, let's take a cut here and we'll look at 1956. Now, obviously, I don't have the 1954 or 55 catalogs to compare against, but the 1953 catalog makes no mention of standalone turntables or radios. So evidently they diversified by this point. And there's also some early color TVs in here. But unfortunately, we had those wonderful, at least pseudo-color photos in the last catalog. Well, they're all black and white this time. But anyway, let's get into some more of Hoffman's hyperbole. So this time around, we'll just go through them all, I guess. Watching TV in any kind of ambient or artificial light, so the TV doesn't get washed out at certain times of day. I've seen enough footage, I guess, on YouTube that I could see that sort of thing happening. So, yeah, I guess that's a deal. But they're really pushing this new black thing, which maybe some TV geek can help me out here, but just reading this little blurb, it looks like it just means deeper blacks for a black and white TV. It doesn't, that's all I can figure out. It doesn't seem to make any other difference. But then we have this lovely fold-out ad that's still going on about the ambient lighting deal. But now they're doing some photo trickery here. They seem to have just taken the same photo and just dodged out the light in the photo lab, in the developing lab, to kind of try and fake it a bit. So this one folds out. Now, I thought that picture still looked kind of contemporary. But once again, it's them just kind of still touting the whole new black thing. Now, they do make mention in here of remote controls. So you could have one of the first remote controls. But their next big thing that they're touting is hi-fi. This is 1956. I think stereo was introduced in 56, but they're still just talking hi-fi. Better frequency response, but still mono. And they have their own little speaker cabinet going here. All right, we've got this little series of, I don't know, half-page, third-page ads, trying to, I guess, help you envision how your TV is going to look in your house. But they're all amusingly austere and just kind of quirky. And I'm pretty sure it's the same woman in all these pictures. But anyway, in this case, traditional apparently involves very sparse settings and a pack of cigarettes. Provincial means that you've got, I don't know, waffle cone textured walls, waffle cone wallpaper. Oh yeah, and stray lemons and limes. Gotta have those. Modern. I don't know, swinging bachelor pad. I'm hard pressed to think of anything from the 50s that I've seen that's legit, not, some present day or at least recent recreation that actually looks like this. This is truly magazine modern 50s. All right, here's the first of the models, and they're going for, I guess, kind of looking the way forward to the 60s, where it was more stands, less furniture looking, and I will never understand what they're going for with this layout here. Looks like a Chinese finger trap, doesn't it? All right. How your TV will look alongside a dead plant. Very chic. Your fresh new TV in front of a pair of unraveled rolls of wallpaper. Okay, we're getting on to the big screen now. The Arcadia 24-inch Supermark, well, that's some sort of eye test. But I'm kind of disappointed in the 56 TVs. They seem to be, I mean, the 53 ones were a bit homogeneous, but it seems like they were really starting to dumb down the look here. Again, we're talking just strictly looks, not necessarily performance. So let's get into the color TVs here. And funnily enough, the tube just makes it look more impressive. And it probably helps that the sets are at least, I don't know, 1% more realistic looking. I've read anecdotally that the sound on these TVs was actually very good. For the standards of the time, of course. Really, they're interchangeable to me. The Regent and the President. Regent. President. All right, so we're coming out of the TVs and we're getting into the radios and the record players. And the radios, I just didn't think were all that impressive. But being kind of a fan of the Conelrad era, I'm always looking for radios with the Conelrad markers on it. And this one does, but it kind of melts in. But there's at least one in here where it is just the most prominent I've ever seen. Oh, and of course you got to have the leatherette for your radio. So here's what I was referring to with Conelrad. Those are some of the most prominent Conelrad markers I've ever seen at 640 and 1240. You know, kind of decent looking radio. No idea how they performed. And I should note that they mentioned the colors that these things came in. And they could get kind of funky. Not just red, but I think one of them had green, yes. Cactus green. It makes me wish this was color. I'd love to know what cactus green looked like. There aren't that many radios, and there aren't that many turntables either, but actually I think it's just the one. Yeah, it is. So here's your state-of-the-art hi-fi for 1956. Still kind of minimalist, really. And the specs. So we're in that zone now that 45s are more common. So we got 3 speeds, 33, 45, and 78. And but funnily enough, it doesn't factor in 7-inch as far as like record changer. The record changer goes. It's still playing by the 10 and 12-inch rule. And of course, the 10 would have been first. But otherwise, oh yeah, and the frequency response, 50 to 15,000 hertz. That's about Type 1 cassette frequency response at its best. But for 1956, you know, that it's kind of hard to argue with that. If you've heard some of the audiophile recordings from the time, they're not all that interesting musically usually, but it's nice to hear what was the state of the art at the time. But anyway, that's all I got for you here I just wanted this to be a little informal, casual sort of thing, and I think I succeeded, certainly on the rambling front. But anyway, that is it for today. I'll talk to you again soon.